This is the second biggest ever main event final table payday. 12 million went to Jamie Gold in 2006 in a field that nearly reached 10,000 players. Jacobson in the big blind, talking in the small. Von Hof on the button with a raise with King 9 to $1.8 million, and Talking comes along. Talking has been backsliding. Queen 10 of hearts, a pretty hand, but it's not the best hand right now. Big blind folds. Queen 10 against King 9. There's a 9. So Von Hof hits the flop once again.
Wow.
And a straight draw for Talking.
So Talking has a double belly,
yep,
and Von Hof has a top pair king kicker. So this could get a little interesting, boys. You know, he did just also lose a pot. You know, Talking has great composure, and I don't think that's really going to affect them. But that is something that is definitely going through both of their heads.
2.2 from Talking.
And I love leading out here. I mean, there's a chance that my opponent missed the flop. I'm always going to call if my opponent bets. So why not just lead out? It's really hard for Von Hof to raise here without a super premium hand or a stone cold bluff. Von Hof with King 9 is never going to raise. His hand is too strong. He's got position on his opponent. He's always going to call and see what happens on the turn.
Two big stacks clashing once again, and now a 10 for Talking as he takes the lead with a pair of 10s.
This is actually a bad card for Talking, just because Von Hof is pretty aggressive. He's got position. He's very good at knowing where his opponents are at, and so he could really take this pot away from Talking. But he does have second pair king kicker.
Check.
So he might check it back just because his hand does have value.
What do you say? A lot of straighty cards out there?
Yeah, I mean a 7.
Yeah.
You know, but this is kind of this, you know, not the same exact situation that we saw a lot earlier against Larrabee, but it's similar in that he has a pair, but a 7 here could get your opponent off a better hand. Ooh.
Oh boy, how good is Von Hof running?
He is too strong. Now, if Talking checks, I think he'll go for a value bet, just because he doesn't think that Talking would check a 7 twice.
Trip 9s on the river to steal the hand back away from Talking, who had turned the 10 to take the lead.
Check.
I think we're going to see a check bet call. I know I would bet. Little value. Value Town. Just pay a little visit.
Come to Value Town. Increase your chip lead.
$7.4.
7.4 is the bet.
Wow, that's more than Value Town.
So this is an incredible bet because he just knows he has the best hand, and he's trying to make it look like he's running Talking off the hand. So he checked back the turn, right? And now all of a sudden he's firing 7.4. It looks suspicious.
Talking does not bite. Van Hof will collect more chips. Kara Scott talked to Van Hof, and he had a lot of preparation for this main event final table, both physical and mental training.
As a mind sport, there's a lot more to poker than just sitting at the table and playing the cards that you're dealt. In fact, a lot of top pros are actually putting time and effort into their mental and emotional preparation as well. Now, Van Hof has long used yoga and meditation as part of his strategy, but he really kicked it up a notch in the last 4 months. He's been working with his longtime mental game coach, Jared Tendler. Jared's here in the stand supporting him. He told me that it was very important that they eliminate every mental variation and flaw in his approach to the table. The goal was to make him rock solid mentally so that he could sustain a focused but relaxed state at the table. It takes a lot of work to do this well.
Everything's working.
Yeah, Jared Tendler has a bunch of clients. They're pretty happy with him. And he seems to get your mental approach all squared away.
Pocket deuces for talking on the button. He called Van Hoof's opening raise of ace from ace-6. And now Billy Pappas into that I'm going to put chips in play pose.
It almost feels like everybody is playing for second place. I mean, he's just, Van Hoof is just is playing lights out, and he's just gets there. He's running good, playing good.
Well, they all have almost similar second place stacks right now.
I mean, nobody wants to bust out now. The pay jumps are so big. This is such an advantageous position for Van Hoof to be in.
And there is an ace in the flop for Van Hoof, who, you know, you have to expect it. You know, he's got an ace, he's going to hit an ace. Pappas check. Van Hoof now.
3.8.
3.8 million. And that'll get rid of a lot of people very quickly. How do you stop the Dutchman? Over 101 million now.
And that puts him with more than half the chips in play, 5-handed.
A very confident Jorrit Van Hoof. He has that same look on his face, whether he's stacking just the blinds and antes or he takes a big pot. It's just a very confident smile. He sits tall, as though it's supposed to happen.
Yeah, well, let's see how well he plays if they shave his head.
Ooh.
There goes the precious hair you love.
Don't say that.
Don't take away his hair.
Anything but that.
It's too strong. Talking looks a little defeated there. I mean, he had so many chips, and now he's down to almost, you know, where the other short guys are. Very disheartening for him.
Stevenson in the big blind. And he will take it with 9-5.
Yeah, it does feel like they're playing for second place. And, of course, the good news there is second place is $5 million. But I think there's still some kick in this table to give Van Hoof a run for his money.
Well, nobody's given up. I mean, this is a crew that knows poker. They know anything can happen. And number of hands right now, 163. And, you know, last year was just 98 more. And we're still 5-handed here. And so, you know, it could go quickly. Big hand versus big hand usually is what happens in a surprising moment. And we keep saying, oh, we're going to be here till 6 in the morning, and then you see the queens versus jacks versus kings or whatever. You know, something.
You never know.
That moment's going to happen.
Yeah, through 164 hands now, we have not had any. We have not had set over set. We have not had a cooler.
Oh, set over set is pretty hard. You don't see that every day. I wonder how many hands have to be dealt in order for it to be a favorite to have set over set. It's got to be a pretty big number.
Yeah, absolutely. Oral Hershiser, Major League Baseball great, says this is great coverage. Thanks, Oral. The wisdom of Antonio is priceless.
Let's move on to the next.
He must be drinking. That hurts Norman, by the way.
Oral, a very active
Oral Hershiser
poker player. Good to have him here.
Hello, Oral.
Whenever he decides to come play the main, come on back next year, Oral. Jacobson with a raise with ace-jack, and take Van Hoof out of the equation, and Jacobson is a man now that has to be dealt with very seriously by these other 3 players that he's jousting for second place. Once Van Hoof enters the pot, it's a different story. Once he's out of the pot, then these guys like play day, you know.
4.5.
You know, Van Hoof doesn't really want to see too much tango between these two guys, between any other 2 guys at the table. He wants to just kind of slowly chip away at everybody and get all the chips. He doesn't want someone else to get a lot of chips.
Look what the short stack just did.
So this is, I mean, this is a really interesting spot. Ace-jack, again, very good hand, but also not one of the best hands. If you're up against a premium hand, you're in a lot of trouble. So this is those moments where you really have to just look at your opponent and try and get something off of him. Even though Stevenson isn't giving away anything, you got to try and get a read. I mean, Jacobson is very capable of re-raising here all in, but he's got to really have a good read.
Looks like he prefers maybe just a call here.
I don't think he's ever just calling.
He's just maybe just keeping his fingers busy. And so once in a while, as Stevenson may be doing here, you just have to go outside what you've been doing. And, you know, when you make a unique play at a certain point and people pay attention.
You know, these days people 3-bet pretty light, and you can't win tournaments unless you're prepared to 4-bet with ace-jack. You know, it's gross, it's disgusting, and sometimes the guy insta calls and it's like, uh-oh, well, that was fun. Especially 5-handed when there's so much money at stake. But really it just gets down to what kind of energy is Stevenson giving off here? You know, does he have a hand you know, that warrants what he's done? I mean, really, you don't 3-bet unless you have a really strong hand. That's what you're. Oh wow.
Oh,
that's gonna hurt.
Jack gets folded. You hated to see that, huh?
I mean, look, I hated to see it because I could see the other guy's hand. But if I'm sitting in a spot and I have ace-jack and my opponent 3-bets me for a decent chunk, and I got to play for my whole tournament, you know, it's a scary spot. I totally understand the fold. I've done it many, many times.
And so Felix Stevenson takes a few chips up to over 22.5 million. Once again into 4th place. Jacobson with almost an identical chip stack, just 25,000 less than Stevenson. And we saw Scott Seaver. He's working with Martin Jacobson, keeping track of the hands, and he will certainly relay that last hand to Jacobson. That a little bit light is what Stevenson was 3-betting with.
I'd like to have a camera just on Scott Seaver in 29 minutes.
Right.
Just to see the reaction on his face.
Well, Scott might be asleep in 29 minutes. I don't like if my top advisor is yawning on the rail.
It's late for everyone. Talking in the small blind. Jacobson in the big. Stevenson open raises with king-9 of spades here. Stevenson folds his big blind, and Jacobson folds his big blind, and Stevenson will take it.
You mentioned how Stevenson wasn't even going to play the main event. He had planned to go to the World Cup in Brazil. Those plans fell through. But then it was actually a bet he made on the World Cup that got him here. He made an exotic bet on a Netherlands match in which he had to pick the exact score. He bet $1,000. It paid 60 to 1. So after he won that money, him and his friends go, hey, we're going to Vegas. And then he ended up only playing the main event once he got here because he came here not to play poker. He wanted to relax.
And we've been playing for 8.5 hours so far. Hope you've been enjoying our cards up action on just a 30-minute delay.
And we're approaching the average time of a World Series baseball game.
Certainly this year, yeah. But it was the result that mattered only. It didn't matter how long the games took.
San Francisco Giants won. Lon's a big San Francisco Giants fan, just for those of you who don't know.
Well, to his old tricks, raising, taking the blinds and antes, smiling in the process, getting his crowd excited once again.
He loves it. He's in heaven right now. I mean, I know we spoke about this a little bit earlier, but a lot of people might not realize this. If Van Hoof could have these 4 opponents at the table and have the stack sizes the way they are, or have one opponent with all those chips playing heads up, he would rather have this particular spot because he's able to do what he does so well. Just chip away at him, pick his spots carefully, and just put maximum pressure on everybody. So this is like the dream scenario for him.
There's a $500,000 bubble right now. That's the next pay jump.
Yeah, and it's only going to keep going higher after this.
And you have 4 guys who have similar stacks, and everyone realizes what everyone else is up to, and Van Hoof just is going to be siphoning chips from the other 4 if he has his way. Somebody's got to stand up at some point. Jacobson on the button with a raise, gets a call from Stevenson. 7-4 of hearts, hoping to get lucky on the flop. No luck.
A whiff and a whiff.
Ace high best for Jacobson, and it is check to him. And what people have told me about the cards up, it's a great learning experience. Some people who play in a card room near my house watched our Australia coverage, and they loved it. They love to see what the players are up to while it's happening rather than afterward. And it's a very educational thing for a lot of novice poker players, people who are learning the game, new to the game. And what they have to take into consideration is that this is a final table. Things play differently at a final table than it does early in a tournament. Don't try this at home in level
exactly.
1.
And by the way, there's a little bit more drama when you know what someone has and you're thinking to yourself, oh, don't do it. Oh, no, do it. And so it's a little bit more entertaining.
This is Dave.
Certainly for me, it's a lot easier when the cards are shown.
But we saw the back and forth nature, you know, when Van Hof, you know, out-flopped, talking, then comes back and takes the lead on the turn with the 10, and then another 9 comes on the river. And it's nice to see that seesaw action happen in real time.
Raise 1.8.
Stevenson in the big blind. Stevenson in the small blind. Pappas on the button. Uritt in the big blind. Pappas gets out of the way. Tonking will take it with the raise. Ace 8 of hearts. And so Tonking's in the, now, you know, just one of the guys. He was separated from the others for a while, feeling a little special, but he hasn't done anything in quite a while. And he is floated down to that second echelon of chip stacks. And he's rowing just as quickly as the other ones are right now. Will Tonking with almost 31 million chips and can't be comfortable with that amount. How do you just play for second place when the first place guy's still playing, though? That's the problem.
It's tough. Tough seats to be in. Wow, what an overwhelming chip lead. I don't think we've ever seen this at the final table. I mean, not since I've been with you guys. 102, and the next place has 30.
2.4, fold.
102 just became 103 with the raise with 7-5 off.
He can raise with anything, and he has been. He knows exactly what he can do. And he's performing exactly as he should. And Uritt had over $120,000 in cashes at 2 events in London, and he cashed for $627 at the nightly $125 buy-in at Aria last week. I mean, you got to keep the poker chops warm.
He's playing a $100 buy-in. He's playing for $10 million here, and he played a $100 buy-in tournament a few days ago.
You got to get the practice. Why not? Aria is a nice place. Play a little poker. Have a little food.
Oh, that's funny.
Plus the casino juice, 100 plus 25 entry. That's a, you know, it's a big casino juice.
He can afford it.
And I wouldn't be happy if I'm a tourist and I'm sitting down to play the $100 at the Aria.
Especially if you've been watching the shows.
And you're playing against this 7'9" guy who's got all the chips across America.
Every time you guys mention his height, he gets taller and taller. He's playing like he's 7'9", I tell you that. Stevenson raises. Jacobson makes the call once again with ace-jack. Queen, king, deuce. Jacobson still best with the bigger ace. And he has the Broadway draw. I checked.
He checked.
And he's inducing a bet from Stevenson here.
That's 1.6.
I mean, he doesn't love being out of position with ace-jack here, but he does have a gut shot to make the nuts, and he's got an overcard, and he knows there's a chance that he actually has the best hand. So, you know, I mean, I think for sure he's going to call here. And this should slow Stevenson down on the turn, even if a blank comes, given that he got check called out of position. It looks like Jacobson could have a queen or a king in his hand.
6 of clubs. Again, misses both. Does Stevenson put more chips to work here?
I mean, I'll be surprised if he does, just because Jacobson is a little bit on the, you know, on the more careful side, and so.
So ace-jack is best.
I mean, as much as ace-shank is a strong hand here, I like betting if I'm Stevenson. I mean, if I'm Jacobson, just because my opponent showed some weakness on the turn, I want to try and get him off of a pair of 8s or maybe even a pair of 10s. I like betting the river here. When my opponent checks back the turn.
Martin is working all that through his head as well. And it almost looked as though he waited for you to finish the sentence and said, yeah, I think I will, Antonio, but no, he cannot hear you.
I can.
We'll learn something then.
I'm a slow learner. Antonio's right, and I just don't pick it up quick enough.
3.6.
3.6 million from Jacobson, and that will be enough to induce the fold from Stevenson. As Stevenson sinks further and further away from the other middling stacks, the 18.4 million. Jacobson about to take over second place. He's just 200,000 or 2 million, I should say, behind Tonking right now.
Yeah, in their own ways, the play of Van Hoof, Jacobson, and Pappas are just stay with me. We've seen how powerful Van Hoof has been. We've seen how incredible Jacobson, with virtually no chips all night, has stayed in the hunt and put himself in a position where he can do damage. And then Billy Pappas, again, the only amateur. It's like he's the amateur against 4 pros. It's like it's like trying to storm the castle in The Princess Bride with nothing but a fake giant going in. He's got nothing. I mean, he's against 4 accomplished players. He's a foosball player, and he's trying to become world champion in a second pursuit. It's amazing.
If he wins this thing, I think you have to say it's inconceivable, but we'll work on that. Jacobson in the small blind, Pappas in the big blind. Talking with a raise to 1.6 million with Jack 7. That doesn't matter what he has. He raised it, and whatever message he's sending is he hopes to get through loud and clear. But Billy has now taken pause.
Pappas doesn't usually take this long and fold.
All in for almost 22 million with ace king, and Tonking will fold. A very frustrated Will Tonking.
He doesn't love to he loves to just go all in when he has a big hand. We saw him do it when he made a flush on the turn. We saw him do it here with ace king. You know, I don't love the play, because you kind of take away the opportunity for your opponent to maybe make another bluff at you. But against Tonking, if he 3-bets, it's unlikely that Tonking is ever going to bite without a premium hand. So, I mean, I get it if I'm sitting in Billy Pappas' shoes to just get it in there. But
well, let me play the amateur since I'm an amateur. But Billy's been a dealer, and he's played, quite a bit of poker. But is he feeling maybe his post-flop play is not going to be as strong as some of the pros, and he'd rather just, collect the chips when he can and let's move on?
I think he just wanted to get the hand over with. He didn't want to get in a spot where he missed ace-king on the flop. He had a situation earlier with ace-queen where he had to just give it up. He doesn't want to miss and have to play this pot out of position. That's basically what it comes down to.
Well, he has enough poker savvy to realize that and know when you're out of position, when you're in trouble, and you don't want to get into a pickle post-flop. And we keep talking about position, and it's so critical to this game in so many ways. Van Hoof with the raise to 1.8 million, and Stevenson with that short stack.
I'm all in.
All in.
Yeah, says all in. And Van Hoof gives it up. Stevenson all in with pocket tens. So Felix Stevenson now trying to get himself back and relevant at this main event final table. He came in as the second biggest stack with almost 33 million, and now sitting with just under 21 million. Stevenson, London-based, born in Oslo, cash game pro, online pro, and had no World Series earnings coming in to this final table, but he'll certainly make a mark on his World Series earnings when this is said and done, Norman.
And when we were down to the main event final table bubble, he took a selfie when we were at 10 players. You know, that's sort of cute, but would Peyton Manning take a selfie at the 2-minute warning of the AFC Championship game? It's a different type of thing. But he was enjoying the moment, and why not?
Maybe if Papa John was on the sideline with Peyton, then he might take a selfie.
Peyton knows a good branding marketing opportunity. You're right.
Big blind, Von Hof, and
I dropped a Jack.
he gets a walk. Walks are good.
Walks are good when you're short stacked, when you're big stacked, it doesn't matter. When you win chips without doing any work, it's great.
Speaking of walks, this final table has lasted so long. Mark Newhouse has already walked back to Los Angeles and is playing the 300-600 limit hold'em at Commerce. What place did Mark Newhouse go out?
9th place. Are you talking about this year or last year?
Either year.
Yeah.
9th and 9th.
9th and 9th. He came in with a 3rd place stack and went out in 9th place tonight.
Oof. Poker is brutal.
It paid no more money to Mark Newhouse. Politano, Sindelar, Larave all got a bump in pay from their 9th place payouts that they were given at the end of the July main event action. And we will conclude the action later on tonight, 9 o'clock Eastern on ESPN. The flagship will carry us to the championship. One of these players earning $10 million. Jacobson, Jack 9, does take it with the raise. Jacobson now, look at that, into 2nd place, going by Will Tonking. Jacobson with $28.4 million.
Began the night the 2nd shortest stack. Somehow he's the 2nd biggest stack right now.
And it's so interesting because he's 2nd, but really there's almost no difference between 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and almost 5th. I mean, yeah, 5th is $8 million, but that's the lowest stack.
$8 million less.
$8 million less than 2nd place. I mean, really all that matters is how significant of a lead Von Hof has.
That's one pot between, 2nd and 5th, and they switch spots.
One of these other, 2 of these other guys get it all in. One of them wins and doubles up. He still will only have half the chips that Von Hof has.
But if you can double through Von Hof, that's a little different.
Much different.
Stevenson with a raise to $1.7 million. Jacobson in the big blind. When he wants to play another pot with the Norwegian. 10-8 off against King 10.
Well, he doesn't want to see a 10 high flop here. This would be this would get him in trouble.
There's an 8 there for Jacobson. So he outflops Stevenson and takes the lead.
Check.
A check from Jacobson with middle pair.
I mean, he's fought middle pair, but the ace you have to be cautious about. Your opponent raised pre-flop, but it's a pretty standard check call situation here. We'll see a call here.
There it is. The pot is now $7.5 million.
So if I'm Stevenson and I bet into my opponent who's called on an ace-8-5 rainbow flop out of position, for sure I know my hand is no good. I mean, almost certainly it's no good. There's a small chance maybe that Jacobson had 6-7 with an open-ended straight draw, and if that was the case, the turn for now sure seals the deal.
Check.
That my hand is not the best hand. So now, knowing I don't have the best hand, do I want to try and fire my way out of here for a 2nd barrel? He's the lowest stack at the table, so every chip matters to him.
Check, check. So Jacobson with the pair of 8s is best. but he can't get too crazy.
This is actually a decent bluff card for Stevenson, given that he checked back the turn. It's possible that he picked up a straight draw with a 6. You know, what is his feeling right now? Is Jacobson going to call me with a pair of 8s, or maybe even has a pair of aces? Can I really represent a 6 here? He's not betting just a naked ace.
Now he's given up. And he's hoping maybe king high is best, but Jacobson has paired up on the flop, and second place is a little stronger for the Swede Martin Jacobson. Stevenson drops to 16.9 million. And look at that face, much more confident than he was earlier on. Here's a summary of what happened as everyone fighting for that $10 million first place prize. Mark Newhouse inconceivably went out in 9th place for the 2nd straight year. The Brazilian, American, and Spanish player all eliminated after that. Jacobson surging into 2nd place now. Adam Levy, ruthless as he's known, says, look like Martin's going to win this whole thing. That might be an overstatement. We've seen this all before. Typical short stack to GOAT, greatest of all time stack story. He's got a lot of fans out there, a lot of the poker pros who have played with him, and you're one of them, know the skills this guy brings to the game.
He's very good. He's owned me in a couple of pots. We've tangoed, and I respect him a lot. You know, him and I don't know each other very well, but he's a total gentleman, a class act.
And by the way, with, again, the distance between first and second right now in chips, though, the nature of no limit, if Jacobson were to double through Von Hoof, they'd be virtually equal in chips.
Raise to 1.8.
You put Jacobson in the same sentence with Von Hoof, and that is an amazing thing to say after what we have seen this whole final table. And what a clawing and scratching and climbing up the chip stack ladder that Martin Jacobson has done. And he also knows he's got a lot of work to do. He's happy with what's happened so far, but he knows his job is not done. Action on talking now on the button.
And, you know, for what it's worth, Von Hoof does not want to get heads up against Jacobson. He'd much rather get heads up against somebody else.
Oh, absolutely. Von Hoof with the raise with Queen 10, talking 3-bet to 4 million with 2 red aces. I
love the size of this raise. It's just enough to kind of wheel him in.
Just a little more.
I mean, it looks a little bit suspicious just because, you know, talking hasn't really been getting out of line too much. I almost feel like if you're going to make it 4 million, you could almost just flat call on the button here. I love flatting aces on the button. But, you know, given how Von Hoof plays, there's a chance he might re-raise him here.
That's what Tonking would love right now.
More than anything.
But we have not seen Von Hoof going aggro in the wrong spots tonight.
No missteps.
And right there again, makes the right move.
And that's impressive. Von Hoof folding. He sensed strength from Tonking, who had the pocket aces. And Tonking wins the minimum there after that raise from Von Hoof. You cannot get any more action from the chip leader.
By the way, Tonking may look a little down in the mouth there, but I think he looks down in the mouth even when he's doing well. He's just got that type of table comportment. Doesn't ever seem too high. And even when he's going well, he looks like he's not feeling that great about it.
Yeah, he's very careful about not coming across as a poser. He really does seem down to earth, reluctant to accept any praise. You saw when they announced his name to get the crowd up. He's like, oh, please don't do that. And it's just the way he carries through everyday life. But he very personal. He's got a nice smile. He's happy to talk to you. His friends are very nice. But say the same thing. He's all business. And he's not trying to be mean. Von Hoof taking it again with the raise under the gun this time. You see all the t-shirts say the cleaner. He actually played online under pretty much his name and some initials. And then he took a lot or all of Justin Bonomo's chips online. And Bonomo said, somebody asked him what happened. Bonomo said, I don't know who that guy was, but he just cleaned me out. And Von Hoof heard about it and changed his screen name and nickname to the cleaner.
I like it. I mean, he's been the cleaner tonight. The name suits him quite well.
Oh, wow. Isn't that true? And the chimney sweep on the T-shirts is a nice touch. Stevenson in the small blind, which means Von Hof is in the big blind, and he just as soon move on to the next hand.
Wow, you just folded King 9 in the small blind with 15 million in chips? That's pretty surprising.
Boy, everything he does, he acts like the Cheshire Cat, like he just stole something from somebody or ate the chip stack.
By the way, you see Jack Ethel there in the background. I feel a little sorry for him. He's got to return the tux by 6 a.m. or he gets charged for another day.
That's a problem.
That's a good one.
Small blind is Von Hof talking in the big. Jacobson folded. Billy
Raised to 1.8.
gonna put some chips in the pot. 1.8 worked for Von Hof. Ace 5 off for Pappas. And Von Hof certainly has seen other people play back at Pappas, and he's had to fold, but I guess no cards to play with for Von Hof, nor Tonking, and so Billy's raise will make it all his. So you take a look at the chip counts now. Stevenson, the short stack with 15.3 million. Pappas next up the line, 23.4, 28.4 for Tonking. Jacobson with 31.7. But with more than half the chips in play is Von Hof, 101.5 million chips.
That's okay.
101 million chips five-handed.
Can I have another water? I'm sorry.
Yes. One more. These are on brownies, I think, and I'm not drinking this anymore. So.
And it's a long night under the hot lights. Keep the water flowing. Pappas.
Raised to 1.8.
Going to try it again. 1.8 million.
Keep it coming.
Keep it coming. For what? We're all going to have to go to the watering hole here.
$1.8 million from Pappas. Folded around to Jacobson. Suited ace for Billy. Jacobson has already put in 800,000, so another million, but it's not worth it to Jacobson with two spade as well, and Billy takes a couple of hands in a row.
During the break before the November 9, Billy went to Germany, Luxembourg, and England to play in foosball events, one in Germany, and spent most of his time in the break, he said, relaxing by playing foosball and basketball.
Thanks, Jose.
Appreciate it.
Can't take anything.
Had a foosball table out for him here, and Billy playing with some of his friends. A lot of foosballers in his crowd here inside the Penn and Teller Theater. And as you mentioned, number of them giving him some poker advice. He doesn't need foosball advice, so they have to do something.
Have you ever seen a good foosball player play foosball?
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. Their precision, the way they control the ball. It's every single thing is calculated. And they know exactly how to send it where. I mean, it's mind-boggling. The first time I saw a really good foosball player, my old roommate, I just couldn't believe how good he was. I mean, we made a bet that he could beat me with one hand, standing on 1 foot. He could only use one hand, and he spotted me 9 points to 10. And he still beat me. I mean,
that's. Well, Billy's been one of the best in the world for a long time. He still has not won an open doubles title. He says he really wants one.
I was going to be a hero in the foosball world even more than he was before now after this.
And he did have a doubles event to go to, and he had to disappoint his doubles partner and say, I'm going to play the main event. And they said, don't worry, I'll find somebody else. And good call, good call. Stevenson with a raise, a 3-bet from talking with ace queen. And so the short stack getting beat up a little bit here. Two face cards to Stevenson might look pretty good.
I mean, he saw talking just 3-bet, you know, a few hands previous to Van Hoof. It worked. You know, he thinks maybe there's a chance his hand is good. It's pretty marginal with King Jack here.
Yeah, and he knows that. And he did fold. A good fold as talking had the goods with ace queen. So 5-handed play continues. It's been very interesting so far. 9th place once again to Newhouse. Knocked out by talking, an incredible call. Then Politano went knocked out by Stevens, and Sindelar knocked out by Van Hoof, and Larave knocked out by Van Hoof as well. And now Billy Stevenson hanging in there. He's picking up chips. Jacobson 3rd place now. They're all fighting pretty much for second place. Similar stacks. Stevenson the short stack, talking with 31.25 million. Van Hoof from the Netherlands.
I just don't think they're all fighting for second place. I still think this is up for grabs. I think any one of these 4 who are in 2nd through 5th place can still win this title.
I totally agree. I'm not dissing that. I'm just mentioning that they're all similar stacks there in 2nd place, and I don't believe for a second that they're all, you know, relinquishing this title to Van Hoof. You make a very good point.
Raised to 1.6.
Pappas has the small blind. Jacobson with a raise to 1.6 million. Min raise with the big blind at 800,000 with 10-4 off.
Definitely below Jacobson's normal starting requirements, but the big blind is short, and so, you know, it's a lot of pressure on him.
Stevenson musters a call with a suited queen.
Give me these in green. I need 4 green. 4 green.
And so these two will see a flop.
150. There you go.
Jacobson with about 17 million more than Stevenson as we look at it. And there's a 10 for Jacobson.
Check.
Stevenson sees no hearts fall. He does have a gut shot. They both check. King of hearts. So Stevenson now.
A lot of times when your
drop.
opponent raises pre-flop and then you check and he checks back behind on the flop, you know, a lot of times they flop second pair, maybe bottom pair, and they just want to keep the pot small and control the pot. And so given that Jacobson check back the flop, it's actually less likely that Stevenson is going to fire on a board like this. I mean, Jacobson can't really bet here. He's got 3rd pair. I mean, he could, but if he checked the flop and a king peels off on the turn, I don't really see him betting, but
no, I see him betting.
Won't be the first time I've been wrong tonight.
2.3 million. And now Stevenson only with right now to hit something on the river, and he will give it up. And his countenance very much down in the mouth for the Norwegian as the Swedish pro now moves back into 2nd place. 32.7 million for Martin Jacobson, who's beginning to show us all what we knew he had within him.
It feels like the 2nd place just keeps rotating. Every hand there's a new 2nd place leader.
Tightly packed group below Van Hoof.
He's on life support now.
11.6 million for Stevenson. Van Hoof recently taken a little break from the action, changing gears a little bit maybe, and let the other four beat each other up for a while. Van Hoof with a big blind here. Pappas on the button.
Raised to 1.7.
Ace-9 off for Jacobson. And now, once again, Stevenson with a decision. He's in a small blind. Chip's committed to the pot already.
I mean, he's got a shove stack. There's no version of him ever calling here in the small blind. He's either shoving or folding. And it feels...
There's the shove with pocket sevens. And so now Jacobson with a decision here. Be for a third of his stack, a little more than that.
You know, it's not necessarily an easy call here with ace-9. If you're up against ace-10 or bigger, you're completely dominated. Your only hope is you're up against an underpair, and even then it's a flip. But losing 10 million of your stack is pretty brutal here.
He's fought
you're the
so
second
hard
in chips
here, yeah.
And now to give it up. But if you call and win, you know, you're all of a sudden a chip leader by a decent amount for the second place position. So it's, you know, it's pretty close. I mean, also Stevenson could definitely be doing this with two picture cards, king queen, king jack, possibly a smaller ace. Very tough call.
What's an exact count?
Yeah, Martin's worked so hard to get up to 40 big blinds. If he does call here and lose, he'll again be the short stack.
And you have to think both ways, right, Antonio? If I call and win, wow, that's great. If I call and lose, what happens?
Of course, yeah. I mean,
11, 5, 7,
11, 5, 7, 5.
11, 5, 75. 5, 75.
It might be just a little too much. If it was 2 or 3 million less, I think he's going with it. But it's a tough decision for him.
Wow, he makes the call to put Stevenson at risk. Jacobson.
If you want to win tournaments, you have to make these calls. Doesn't matter what's at stake. If he wins this pot, it's very, very good for him.
Ace-9 for Jacobson.
What a train wreck of an hour. What a train wreck of an hour.
No, not at all. These are the bumps. This is perfect. You need to breathe and have confidence.
I know Pappas the only one left at the table, hoping he'll move up another pace spot when Stevenson get knocked out. Everyone else in their respective corners. The pocket sevens at risk. And there's a 7.
It's a long way to go. It's a long way to go.
Jacobson seeing a third of his stack drain away with that flop.
Oops.
6 of diamonds.
Uh-oh. It's never easy.
Open-ended now for Jacobson.
Jacobson hoping to make runner straight to knock out Felix Stevenson. Stevenson said there was a long way to go when he was a 95% favorite. He knew what he spoke of.
18% feels like so much.
There is the river card. A harmless tray of hearts on the river. And Felix Stevenson will double through Martin Jacobson. Back to the grind for Jacobson.
When they're all flopping down. Much more exciting this way.
Yeah. I run to the bathroom? Okay. Run to the bathroom?
Yeah, but I'm looking at a deal.
Right,
So Jacobson once again the short stack. Stevenson in third place with 24.5 million.
That was actually great for Van Hoof.
Well, he came back once or twice. Martin Jacobson knows his night is not over. That was something he did not want to happen. And the reaction from the respective rails and the principals. You saw the 7 come down on the flop. Good news for Seaver and Stevenson. Well, everyone return to your places. We are still 5-handed.
And Martin Jacobson back in his comfort zone of about 25 big blinds. That's where he can do the most damage.
A bit too excited.
I'm sorry?
A bit too excited.
Right. They go to help
Billy wasn't rooting against Stevenson, maybe just for Jacobson with that $520,000 pay bump.
So even though Jacobson lost that pot, you know, I don't think that's going to bother him at all. He knows it's just basic poker, you know, tournament strategy. It is what it is. I think he had to make the call. He knows it. But Jacobson is, you know, he's so calm and collected, and he knows the theory too well to let this affect him. So he's just going to get back in there and just get back to the fight, you know. The good fight is not over.
Absolutely. No, not by a long shot. Jack 10 offsuit. Pappas raises to 1.8 million. Stevenson on the button.
Wow, window card 7. What a good spot to be in.
Call.
Was that a hand do you think Jacobson could have gotten away from? Maybe you felt like maybe that was a...
It was close.
Coin flip in his brain, whether or not he's going to...
I think it was close. But I think in the long run, it's probably the right decision to call there, just given the range of Stevenson's shoving hands.
Stevenson calls with pocket 6s, and he'll see a flop with Billy Pappas. And 6s still good. Gut shot for Billy.
I think he might have just flatted because he knows that his opponent can tend to get a little gun shy from time to time.
2 million.
But generally, 5-handed pocket 6s on the button, you kind of want to 3-bet. You don't want to call and have some overcards fall. It's kind of a gross spot to be in, unless you're both super deep.
Pappas, that's $2 million with his draw. Stevenson's under pair to the board. Go into the muck.
Some credit for Pappas. You know, he just led right out with Jack high. Respect. Respect the foosball.
So Billy into third place with almost 27 million. And we see the leaderboard change with every hand. Van Hoof under 100 million now, so he's slipping a little bit.
Oh, that might tilt him.
It's not like he's lost a pot. He just hasn't played a pot in a couple rounds. You know, they're going a little bit crazy.
Oh, absolutely. No, that's what happens. You lose millions by not playing a hand.
Can we get a long break back?
I don't know how long generally foosball tournaments go, but I can't imagine they play till 5 in the morning.
Didn't he say they play for hours and hours a day?
Yeah, it was like 14 hours a day, and you're on your feet for like Thursday through Sunday. So he finds this much less grinding than foosball, which was really tiring. You're on your feet.
14 hours a day of foosball sounds a little ridiculous to me.
Raised to 1.4.
And the top foosball player makes how much a year, you were saying?
The tops is 30,000. The top guy in the world makes 30,000.
On your feet 14 hours a day in a tournament. Van Hoof with pocket jacks on the button and a raise to 1.8 million. With Jacobson now in the big blind.
Uh-oh. Van Hoof has woken up with a couple of big hands on the button.
There's a call with 8-6 of diamonds. And so Jacobson looking to find a little luck in the flop. And there's an 8, but he's still behind. And immediately you're at comes out with 2.1 million. Jacobson has a piece of that flop.
It's such a gross piece. You know, you have it. Your opponent is raising with any 2 cards, betting with any 2 cards, but at the end of the day, you still a bottom pair against the monster chip leader out of position. It's just gross.
He makes the call. All right, so now Jacobson open-ended.
Open-ended, but the 10 is no good, as Van Hoof would make a Van Hoof would make a bigger straight. So
bottom end of the straight, a lot better for
Jacobson. He doesn't know that, obviously. His
right.
hand does improve because now he's picked up a open-ended straight draw in his mind.
Check, check. Another 7 on the river does not help Jacobson.
Yeah, Jacobson is not betting here. He's going to check, pray. There's the check.
You got this one though, right?
Now, if Van Hoof goes for value, it's a great value bet. A lot of players will check back here, but given that Jacobson kind of played his hand, you know, not very strong, not very aggressive, there's a very good chance that Van Hoof has the best hand.
5.3.
Wow, that's a very strong value bet. Almost making it look like he's trying to run Jacobson off the hand. I love that bet.
He made a similar move against Tonkin earlier. Tonkin did not fall for it and folded. We'll see how Jacobson reads this.
I mean, it does look fishy. You know, he bet the flop, and then he checked back the turn with a 7, 8, 9 out there. If you have a big ace, you don't really want to check back the turn here. You might, just to keep the pot relatively small. You don't want to get check raised. But to bet 5 million with 2 jacks here on the river for value is such a strong play. Man, I am so impressed with Van Hoof.
A call here from Jacobson would cost him overall in his hand almost half a stack. He does manage to get away from the pair of 8s.
But still a bad 2-hand arc for Jacobson. He's lost. He's gone from 32 million to 16 million plus in the hands, the last 2 hands that he's lost.
And Van Hoof now up to 104.5 million. And his gang better settle in for a longer evening. And make their reservations for tomorrow night, perhaps as well. And he certainly is the favorite at this point. 10 minutes left in this level. But, you know, again, we've seen shocking things happen, not only tonight, but through the years. And no chip lead is safe, as we said, until you've got all the chips in front of you. Tonking on a button.
Raised to 1.6.
1.6 million is the raise. Jacobson gets rid of his small blind. Pappas in a big.
Different placement with the card protector.
Yoshi
just
put
in
to work.
general, his whole, the way he's handling his chips and his cards are completely different than we've seen previously tonight.
And there is the call. 7-6 suited. And there's a 7 for Billy Pappas. So the pair of 7s comes through for him. Ace-Jack misses.
Now, it's pretty standard that when you call a pre-flop raise out of position and you flop a pair or anything, really, you almost always check to the pre-flop raiser. That's pretty much the standard play. And so Pappas has flopped second pair. You know, it's a pretty good hand. He's got some runners.
1.8.
He's got a call here. You know, not knowing what his opponent has. Second pair, it's hard to make a pair. You gotta call and see what happens on the turn. Tonking isn't really the double barrel kind of guy. You know, we haven't seen any of that tonight. So, pretty standard call. Pretty mandatory call.
Mandatory. I mean, you have 7-6. You flop
A pair.
Your best card.
You got to see what happens on the turn.
Another 4. Might throw some doubt into the situation.
Yeah, Pappas isn't really worried about a 4 in Tonking's hand, just because if he had a 4 in his hand, he's much more likely to just check back the flop. Plus, he also raised pre-flop, so it's just unlikely he has a 4. If he bets here, he's really representing a 9 or an overpair to the board.
Check.
But again, Tonking's not really the double barrel kind of guy.
A check back. King of Hearts now on the river, completing the board.
Not the greatest card for Pappas. If he checks and Tonking bets, it's a little bit tough for him to call.
Check.
But again, he's only representing a king. But Tonking is more likely to just check it back. But he knows that his ace high is probably no good, given that Pappas just checked the river. He has showdown value. But ace jack, you know, also has some showdown value, but not enough to win in this particular spot. So will he try and rip a king here? You know, we haven't really seen him do it too much tonight. I don't think he will.
Check.
He does check back, and the pair of 7s will win the pot for Billy Pappas,
who's now made his way to the prized second place spot. That's as high up as any of these guys can get.
It is amazing. Billy Pappas, once on life support, has worked his way back into a viable chip stack, taking him that time from Will Tonking. In second place, the World Series of Poker main event final table, Billy Pappas, the amateur, the foosball champion, wearing a green Yoshi hat. Wow. Quite a story. And Von Hof has been on the sidelines lately, watching all this transpire with the riffraff here at the table, the shorter stacks.
1.8.
This is great to look at the contrast. The 4 pros here all wearing black. Billy, to identify himself as the amateur donkey doofus foosball guy, wears the green cap. And who knows, he may end up with all the pros chips.
The flat billed green hat too, much less. Von Hof with the raise with the Jack-8 suited. Stevenson in the big blind. Come in for a discount, and he makes the call for $1 million more. Queen Jack against Jack-8. 2 hearts, a couple of 9s, a couple of misses.
They can't just give us an action flop, huh?
We've had a few of those, but
had a lot more whiffs.
Yeah, you're right.
2 million.
$2 million's enough. Von Hof does it again. And now up to 107 million. His high point for the evening.
That's the best one.
It's the Von Hof show. Von Hof show, ladies and gentlemen. He is the man in charge tonight.
I like that one a lot.
Well, it'd be interesting to see how he handles it from here. I mean, if he just keeps doing what he's been doing, everything will go just fine. But he's bound to hit a bump in the road somewhere. Nobody's going to pitch a shutout at the final table. He's trying.
Yeah, he's never fallen below second in chips after starting as a chip leader here in the November 9. He has been almost wire to wire the leader.
Stevenson in the small blind folds, and Van Hof will get the walk. So he has reminded everybody that he is here. He has the biggest stack, and walks are very much appreciated and expected. 2 years in a row we've had a Dutch poker player at the main event final table. His friend Michiel Brummelhouse made the final 9 last year.
6 years in a row we have had someone under the age of 30 winning here, and Van Hoof trying to end that streak at the ripe old age of 31.
Felix Stevenson, the youngest one left at 24 years old.
Raise to
Stevenson
1.75
from the button, and a raise to 1.75 with Jack 4 of hearts.
I think Van Hoof picked up on some weakness there. It just felt like Van Hoof, the way he was sizing up Stevenson, thinks that he's weak. You know,
4.2.
yeah.
7.2.
4.2.
I wouldn't be surprised if he has nothing here.
He's got a better jack than Stevenson. A 3-bet from Van Hoof gets rid of Tonking and the big blind, and so Felix Stevenson.
He's been getting pushed around all night by Van Hoof.
Well, he's put himself in that position too, but he has to try to, you know, play against the big stack. He can't just fold every time. So Jack 4 suited looked pretty good at the moment, and right now doesn't look so good. Coming up on the break in a few minutes, Kara Scott, Daniel Negreanu, Phil Hellmuth will recap some of the action here that we have seen in this level. And again, I'm sure they'll be talking a lot about Jorrit Van Hoof, our chip leader, approaching 111 million now. And he's really barely been tested, and anything that comes his way he has dealt with aplomb, with excellence, with excellent timing, with, you know, the chip stack muscle at the right time. He has not made a wrong move.
Yeah, if this were Monopoly, the other 4 players would have to put all their properties together to try to fight the big corporate megalopolis that Mr. Van Hoof is.
This will be the last hand of this level. You're taking that break as promised. Get it down to Kara, Daniel, and Phil. Van Hoof with the standard raise with any 2 cards, but he has suited cards. Queen 5 of diamonds. Jacobson in the big blind now.
All in.
And he says all in. He's got a couple of 10s. And Van Hoof will get rid of it, and the players will be on a break. So a nice little pop for Martin Jacobson. He moves up to 18.7 million. Stevenson, the short stack, with 18 million, but it's Jorrit Van Hoof with 109 million. Kara Scott with the break after this.